رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم إنا نسألك تمام الوجوه وتمام الصلاة وتمام المغفرة. ربنا اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولآبائنا ولأمهاتنا ولأزواجنا ولذرياتنا ولجداتنا ولأصدقائنا ولأحبابنا ولمحسننا ولأكابرنا ولأقاربنا ولمن حق علينا ولمن أوصانا بالدعاء ولجميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. اللهم اغفر موتانا وموتى المسلمين وارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم أيد الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم احفظ الإسلام والمسلمين. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للقوم الظالمين ونجينا برحمتك من القوم الكافرين. اللهم إنا نجعلك في نهورهم ونعوذ بك من شرورهم. اللهم احفظنا من كل بلاء الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة. يا واسع الفضل اغفر لنا. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا كريم. فاعف عنا يا كريم. فاعف عنا يا كريم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وأصحابه أجمعين. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله كي وأتوب إليك. اللهم أعنا على تلاوة القرآن وذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نسألك خير هذا اليوم ونصره وفتحه وبركته وهداه، ونعوذ بك من شر هذا اليوم ومن شر ما بعده. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. نعوذ بكلمات الله التامات كلها من شر ما خلق. اللهم بك أصبحنا وبك أمسينا وبك نحيا وبك نموت وإليك النشور. اللهم ما أصبح بنا من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك، فلك الحمد ولك الشكر. اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها اللهم باقية كباقية الوليد اللهم باقية كباقية الوليد اللهم باقية كباقية الوليد اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك ربنا وتعاليت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك. इंशाअल्लाह अभी मुफ्ती आदम साहब का प्रोग्राम होगा.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما بسجد الشريف اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. So this is our 21st lesson. However, we weren't able to complete in the evening. We had a little bit left. So we'll finish off what we had left and see what we can cover of the 21st lesson. So we're going through the book of Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayh, Ad-Da'u wad-Dawa, Al-Jawab al-Kafi. And we've come to a very different stage in our journey now. Before it was speaking about the harmful effects of sins. Then it went into speaking about certain sins. Then he went into very deep into talking about zina and homosexuality in detail, extensively. And then he went on to say that there's 4 areas that we need to control, and that's the sight, the tongue, the mind, and the footsteps. Then we've taken a different route altogether, and he said, well, what if somebody's already stuck in this sin? Somebody's already got attachment, an illicit, haram relationship. What should that kind of individual do? Is there a way out? He said, yes, there is. And there's 2 ways. One is a preventative cure, and the other is where you nip it from the bud, you attack it from the source, and you just get rid of it from there. So when it comes to removing preventative measures, he said 2 things. One is lowering the gaze, and then he gave 10 benefits of lowering the gaze. We've done that. And the second one he said is ishtighalul qalb, busying your heart with something else, occupying your heart and mind with something else, so that you kind of don't remain occupied with the thing that you've got attachment towards, the sin. And to do this, he's saying there's a very practical way. You can't just sit in a lecture and expect this to happen to you. It's very practical. It requires practice. It requires action. We can't just sit in a... Lectures are extremely beneficial. no one misquote me and misunderstand. Lectures are extremely beneficial, we need to carry them on. But that's not sufficient to bring about change. Change, this is a serious change, and this affects every one of us. That's not just going to come by listening to a lecture. He's saying every single day you will have to work on this. This is a psychological struggle every single one of us will have to go through every day. He said the way to do this is you need to create two things in your life. You need to create a deeper fear than the fear you already have in regards to this sin. So you don't want to give this sin up because you think you're going to lose your beloved, or you're going to lose the pleasure, or you're going to, whatever it is, there's a fear there. There's a fear aspect there that keeps you going towards that. So you need to create a deeper fear. And you need to create a higher love, which is greater than the love of the beloved, or love of the attachment, or love of the sin that you're engaged in. Until you don't do this, he says, you will not be able to give up. And this, of course, is a secret, which most people don't manage to get this far, thus they're not able to give up. They try everything else. We're saying this is what needs to be done. You need a higher level of love that supersedes the superficial love that you currently have. After speaking about that, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi now takes us on the journey of love. He is explaining to us what love is. And he's telling us that we've got it all wrong. Because the love that we claim to have is not real love. There's only one true love that you can have, and that is the love a person has for Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he went into some of the levels of love. We spoke about number one, al-alaqa, attachment, where your heart is attached to someone or something. Then number two, as-sababa, which means when your heart pours over something. So that goes a little bit more further. Number three, gharam, and that is, gharam is when a person, you owe somebody money and they stick to you like glue, like pay up, give it to me. So that's when your heart, you're constantly connected to your beloved, always online. Okay, so that's a third level of love. Then, number four, ishq. Ishq is infatuation, where you reach extremes for the beloved. Then, shawq. This was a very interesting one, which is yearning. Like even in the absence of the beloved's not there, but you're yearning constantly, and we use this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. Then, so that was 5. Then 6, oh yeah, you said it's the hard one, yes. Tadayyun, okay, which means ta'abbud, where you start to worship the beloved. And this is the highest level in this world we can reach in terms of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the 3 of his most noble moments in the world as being his slave. He didn't use the title of messenger or prophet, Allah used the word slave. 3 great positions he had, moments. Number 1, his moment of da'wah, when he called people to Allah. Number 2, when he was abused by people and Allah defended him, okay, that was exalting him as well. So that's another moment. And number 3, we all know Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, okay, his greatest night in his entire life. So when he was calling people to Allah, وَأَنَّهُ لَمَّا قَامَ عَبَدُ اللَّهِ يَدْعُوهُ كَادُوا يَكُونُونَ عَلَيْهِ لِبَدًا. So over here, when he was inviting people to Allah, Allah calls him Abdullah. And the second one is when the people were attacking him, calling him that he's made this Quran up by himself, he's fabricated it, he's just made it up all by himself, this is not from Allah. Allah defended him, and Allah defended him by saying, what was the verse? وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ, if you are in doubt in regards to مِمَّا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبَدِنَا, over here, فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ بِمِثْلِهِ, bring a surah like the Quran. And the third one we all know, سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى. Then he went on to mention, before he mentioned the 7th type of love, and the 7th level, which is exclusive for only 2 people, because this is Lillah, and that's only for Ibrahim alayhi salam and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Nobody else can have that level. But he said, these are levels of love. But there's 4 types of love, 2 different things. And he goes, we have to master the 4 types of love. Number 1 is loving Allah. Loving Allah, he said, is not enough for salvation on the Day of Judgment, because the mushrikeen, the Yahud, the Nasara, everybody claims to love Allah. So that's not enough. So that's one level. But part of loving Allah is the second type of love, loving what Allah loves. Okay, this is important. Loving what Allah loves. This completes the first one. This is what enters a person into Islam. You can't just enter into Islam and become a Muslim and leave disbelief by saying, I love Allah. Okay, everyone claims almost to love Allah who has some kind of faith. You have to not just love Allah, you have to love everything that Allah loves. Allah loves the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah loves the Quran. Allah loves Islam. Allah loves the truth. And then alongside that comes everything that Allah doesn't like as well, which we'll go into. People don't like talking about loving for the sake of Allah is there, but we don't kind of touch the topic of hating for the sake of Allah. And that's also part of Iman. It's an integral part of Iman. We have to do it in a correct way, of course. But that's also there. It's important to understand that. And that will come. And then number 3 was loving for Allah. Loving for Allah. So when you do love other people or other things, it should be because of Allah. For the sake of Allah. There should be Allah in there somewhere. And the 4th one was a polytheistic love. This is called mahabbatu shirkiyah, where you start to love other people the way you're supposed to love Allah. And that was the mushrikeen, where they love their idols in the way that you're supposed to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he said there's a 5th type, but it's not harmful, as long as it's within the limits, and that's natural love. Like a thirsty person loves water, a hungry person loves food, someone that's tired, especially Ramadan, we love to sleep, okay? And at the same time, you love your children, you love your spouse, you love your family. He said that's fine. But if that prevents you from the remembrance of Allah, then that's destructive. So there needs to be a balance. So we spoke about all of this already. Okay, let's move on now. Let's try and conclude what we were saying yesterday in the evening. So, وَقَدْ تَقَدَّمَ أَنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَا يَتْرُكُ مَا يُحِبُّهُ وَيَهْوَاهُ إِلَّا لِمَا يُحِبُّهُ وَيَهْوَاهُ. He says that this has already been mentioned before. He's just reminding us that a person will not leave that thing which he loves and he desires except for something else that he desires and he loves. Can you see? Where one desired thing leads to another desired thing. Okay? That's fine, that's sweet, that's quite enjoyable. Okay? So you're leaving one thing that you desire, but you're getting something else. That's fine, okay. No Coke, I love Pepsi. Okay, fine. Okay, it's okay. There's no 7-Up, I love Sprite. Okay, you're kind of getting something here and here. لكن يترك أضعفهما محبة لأقواهما محبة. But how it happens is you kind of prioritize you leave the one you love least for the one you love more. كما أنه يفعل ما يكره لحصول ما محبته أقوى عنده من كراهية ما يفعله. Similarly, a person will do something he dislikes. You don't like it, but the love of what you're going to achieve is greater than the dislike. So you'll go ahead with it. You'll go ahead with it. So sometimes you don't like to do something, but what you're going to achieve out of it, you want that, you desire that. I don't know what example we can give. It's like drinking coffee in the beginning. It's not something someone enjoys doing first, okay? But when you get out of it, maybe, people kind of like it. It takes some time for it to become an acquired taste, and people get a buzz out of it. But the end result is more beloved. أو لخلاصه من مكروه كراهته عنده أقوى من كراهة ما يفعله. Or to get rid of something that you dislike, that is more. The feeling of that is more stronger than the disliked thing which would have come as a result of it. So he's going to explain this in more detail. It's a little bit technical here. As we go along, he's going to explain this really well. وتقدم أن خاصية العقل إيثار على المحبوبين على أدناهما. So he's just doing a recap. He goes, look, I've already mentioned all of this before. He said the role of the intellect. Allah's given you aql. Allah's given you intellect. The role of the intellect is to prioritize between two beloved things. Because that's the job of the mind in this world. You like this and you like this. Now you need to learn to be able to prioritize which one should I do, which one shouldn't I do? وَأَيْسَرُ الْمَكْرُهَيْنِ عَلَىٰ أَقْوَاهُمَا. And there's two things you dislike, right? Which one is less problematic? You need to be able to prioritize. وَتَقَدَّمَ أَنَّ هَذَا كَمَالُ قُوَّةِ الْحُبِّ وَالْبُغْضِ. And because it's also been mentioned that this is the kind of pinnacle of love and hate in this world. وَلَا يَتِمُّ لَهُ هَذَا إِلَّا بِأَمْرَيْنِ. Now two more things again. Because look, you can't achieve this without two things. And he's speaking about the same two things we've been speaking about. Number one, a strong perception. Okay, remember we've been speaking about this? Okay, strong perception. We called it insight. We called it yaqeen. We called it firasa. All of these words we've used. So he's speaking about the same. So you need two things basically to master all this that he's been speaking about. He's putting it to 2 points. You need two things. You need a strong heart and a strong mind. So strong perception, and number two, you need a strong heart, which we've also said it's called sabr. We've also said it's called willpower, and other words as well. So because these are the two things you need: strong perception, strong insight, and number two, a strong heart, or we can call it willpower. He says, فَإِنَّ التَّخَلُّفَ عَنْ ذَلِكَ وَالْعَمَلْ بِخِلَافِهِ يَكُونُ إِمَّا لِضَعْفِ الْإِدْرَاكِ بحيث إنه لم يدرك مراتب المحبوب والمكروه على ما هي عليه. He says, anyone who has not truly understood this, basically, if you've got a weak heart, if you've got weak perception, because you won't understand this. That's what he's trying to say, basically. Because this is something what you need to develop, and this is not an overnight thing. You can't sit in a lecture and develop this. This is a daily, psychological, practical, active kind of something that we have to keep doing every single day. And he's saying that if you don't have this, you're not going to be able to overcome the desires that come your way. He said, look, there's some people, فَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَكُونُ سُلْطَانُ شَهْوَتِهِ أَقْوَى مِنْ سُلْطَانِ أَقْلِهِ وَإِيمَانِهِ. There's some people that the power of the desire, okay, is more powerful and overpowers the power of their intellect and their iman. Okay, that فَيَقْهِرُ الْغَالِبَ الضَّعِيفِ. So whichever is more powerful, it kind of overpowers the intellect. You've got intellect, but you become blinded. وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَكُونُ سُلْطَانُ إِيمَانِهِ وَأَقْلِهِ أَقْوَى مِنْ سُلْطَانِ شَهْوَتِهِ. Some people, it works the other way around. They've got really good intellect, okay, really good basira, very good insight. They know what's right, they know what's wrong. Look, you've got two types of people, and this is very common. So a lot of people fall into this category where they've got a good perception, they can distinguish between right and wrong, they know this is right, they know this is wrong, they know how to prioritize, but they don't have the willpower. Okay? So that's quite common. But you also get the other way around as well, especially in a lot of youth, okay? Especially people who kind of go to the gym. Endurance sports, for example, will help you achieve stronger willpower. Physical, spiritual go hand in hand. People who maybe go running, for example, okay? We're not just talking about playing football or something. We're talking about things that you do yourself, and you are competing with yourself again and again and again, and trying to get better, okay? And that's what the nafs is as well. It's a daily battle, isn't it? It's a daily exercise with the nafs. So a lot of people like that, they've been working on themselves, so they kind of like, yeah, I'm ready for anything. I've got the will. Anything, I'm ready. Call me, I'll be ready to do anything. But what they don't have then is they don't have the perception to differentiate between the right and the wrong. So that's why they just take part in anything and everything, thinking they're doing something good. But they don't know right from wrong. They'll speak up when they're not supposed to speak up, okay? Thinking they're doing something good because I've got the willpower. So you need both of these things, he says, a balance. So you need a strong perception and a strong willpower. And it takes time. So, وَإِذَا كَانَ كَثِيرٌ مِّنَ الْمَرْضَى يَحْمِيهِ الطَّبِيبُ عَمَّا يَضُرُّهُ. He goes, look, so many patients, right, the doctor says, look, no more sugar. You need to cut down salt from your diet. If somebody's got hypertension, for example, okay, high blood pressure, look, you need to cut down on your salt. If someone's got diabetes, like, you need to control your sugar intake, and whatever. So the doctor gives them advice, like no sugar, no salt, right? فَتَأْبَى عَلَيْهِ نَفْسُهُ وَشَهْوَتُهُ إِلَّا تَنَاوَلُهُ. But this guy, his nafs, does not accept it. He goes, I'm going to have it. You can tell me as much as you want. There's so many people like that. Yeah? The doctor says, look, you need to cut down on your sugar. You need to cut down on your salt. But he always does it. He brings the physical and spiritual together to give you an example. That, look, they go hand in hand. They're very similar in the way they work. Because just like there, a lot of people, their nafs, okay, their desire, their ego, whatever it is, tells them, hey, doctor can tell me whatever he wants. I'm going to carry on having salt. I'm going to carry on having sugar. I'm going to carry on having all the things that I want. And he puts his shahwa, meaning his desire, before his intellect. He's supposed to use his head. Doctor's told you, right? He's telling you because he's got the intellect. He's giving you, he's knocking some sense into you. But can you see over here? His desire is overpowering his intellect. This, he says that وَتَسْمِيهِ الْأَطِبَّاءَ عَدِيمُ الْمُرُوءَةِ. The doctors call this type of person, how do you say in our language? Bewakuf, basically. Bewakuf, simple. It doesn't have any sense. He's immature in the head, basically. Very immature. فَهَذَا أَكْثَرُ مَرْضَى الْقُلُوبِ. He's saying most of the people, when it comes to spiritual illnesses, because they are very bewakuf. They're very immature. You know, you get a kid, okay? Kid's a kid, immature. Because most of us, Ibn Qayyim is saying, okay, not to sound offensive to anybody, but majority of us are very spiritually very immature. We do, this is what we do. We know what's right, we know what's wrong. We've been told 1,000 times, but we'll still do it despite knowing, because our nafs overpowers our intellect. Because this is spiritual immaturity. Now he's saying, look, everything is linked. He's saying, فَأَصْلُ الشَّرِّ مِنْ ضَعْفِ الْإِدْرَاكِ وَضَعْفِ النَّفْسِ. He says the base of all evil in this world. Remember, we're talking about sin, we're speaking about attachment. So he's saying the base of all evil in this world is because of two things. The basis. Why does evil happen in this world? Number one, weakness of perception. Number two, weakness of courage. That's it. And that's what we've been talking about. Because you need to strong perception, strong courage. Because every sin, every evil, every bad habit a person has in this world is because of two things. Weakness of perception, you didn't weigh out, like you couldn't see the right from the wrong. You couldn't weigh out the pros and the cons, the benefits and the harms. Or you knew this, but you were strong enough to just follow your mind and you just followed your desires. وَضَعْفُ النَّفْسِ. And then he says the opposite. وَأَصْلُ الْخَيْرِ. The basis of all good in this world. Good habits, good behavior, virtue, every good, the basis of it is كَمَالُ الْإِدْرَاكِ, strong perception, وَقُوَّةُ النَّفْسِ, and a strong heart, having good courage, willpower. فَالْحُبُّ وَالْإِرَادَةُ أَصْلُ كُلِّ فَعْلٍ وَمَبْدَأُ. Now he's linking this, right? What were we talking about prior to this? Love, right? So it's all going to come back to love now. Because the guy who's asking the question, his question is related to love, okay? Because he's fallen in a haram relationship. That's what Imam Ibn Qayyim kind of figured out. After all of these lessons, he says, I think you're asking me about this. You've fallen into zina, or it could even be homosexuality, it could be either or. But he didn't say, but he says, I think this is what you're asking me about. So that's why he's going into some. So now he's linking it all to love, right? He says, وَالْحُبُّ وَالْإِرَادَةُ أَصْلُ كُلِّ فَعْلٍ وَمَبْدَأٌ. He says that love and willpower, two things, love and willpower is the beginning of basically everything, every action that happens in this world. The beginning and the basis of everything, whether it's doing something, there's two things you can do. Either you can do something or you can quit something. You do something or you don't do something. Fa'al is doing, tark is leaving, right? So we've been told to do things and leave things. So either we need to sort ourselves out and do something or leave something. There's no third thing, right? He says every action, whether it's doing something or leaving something, the basis of it is love and willpower. When you do something or leave something, it's because of a love. And this is really profound as it goes further. وَالْبُغْضُ وَالْكَرَاهَةُ. So when it comes to doing things, it's because of love and willpower. When it comes to leaving, it's because of some kind of dislike or hatred is the basis. And he says, these two powers, وَهَاتَانِ الْقُوَّتَانِ فِي الْقَلْبِ أَصْلُ سَعَادَةِ الْعَبْدِ وَشَقَاوَتِهِ. Your fortune or misfortune depends on these two powers that you have. In this world and the hereafter, it's going to be all about these two powers inside you. The love and the willpower to do things, and the hatred that drives you not to do things. Everything's based on these two powers. And وَكُلُّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنَ الْفِعْلِ وَالتَّرْكِ الْإِخْتِيَارَيْنِ. Now, moving on, he's going to speak about fi'l and tark, doing things and quitting things, because they are both voluntary. You have full control. Full control. If you've got the ability to do something, okay, if you've got the ability to do something, some people say, I can't quit. That's false. If you can do it, you can also not do it. There's no such thing as, I can do it, but I can't do it. No. If you can do it, that means you can't do it. And if it works the other way as well. You can do it, if somebody says, I just can't wake up for Fajr. Of course you can. You can wake up. It is possible. He says, you have full control over both fi'l and tark in this world. Now, Imam Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi says, when people try to figure this out, right, they make a big mistake. And the big mistake they make is, وَلَكِنْ يَغْلَطُ فِيهِ أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ غَلْطًا قَبِيحًا. Because this mistake is a really serious mistake. We'll all be able to relate to it when you hear it. It's very common, very, very, very common. And this is why a lot of people don't end up quitting sins or bad habits or attachment. Because we think we're dealing with it, but we're not. We're making the problem worse. It's aggravated even more. He says, فَيَقْصِدُ حُصُولَ اللَّذَّةِ بِمَا يُعَاقِبْ عَلَيْهِ أَعْظَمَ الْأَلَمِ فيؤلم نفسه من حيث يظن أنه يحسن لذته ويشفي قلبه بما يعقب عليه غاية المرضى. He says that the grave and the most serious mistake people make is like, okay, when you're going through a difficulty, so say you're going through a bad time, a bad patch, a rough period, you've got this attachment, you're committing a sin, and you kind of want to give it up. Now what people do is, that's a deep pain a person has. Like giving up an attachment, there's a deep pain associated to it. How do you get over that? So what he says, what people tend to do, they seek out pleasure in doing something else, right? That covers up that pain momentarily. But it's kind of a sin. So you end up doing a sin, thinking, to overcome this pain I'm feeling, I'm going to commit a sin. But then what happens is, at that moment it feels pleasurable. But as soon as you've done it, you've invited a new pain in your life. And the thing is, the pleasure of sin lasts for moments, but the pain lasts for a lifetime. And the regret and the remorse. So because this is how people end up digging the hole deeper and deeper. And because this becomes worse than the situation a person was in the beginning. And he says this is because of people want instant gratification. He's speaking about having spiritual maturity. We don't have spiritual maturity. Like we've been told, like, not now, like wait, like, you're going to get it later. But we can't. We tell children, right? We expect children to understand this. But kids are young. Small children, you tell them, you can have it later. They don't understand that concept. They don't understand the concept of later, tomorrow. You give them one sweet, they want another one now. No, you've had one today, you can have another one tomorrow. They don't get it. They don't get that. Imam Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah is saying that we, in our spiritual realm, this is how we are as well. That we don't have spiritual maturity like a child. Like a child doesn't understand tomorrow. He's saying we can't. وَهَذَا شَأْنُ مَنْ قَصَرَ نَظَرُهُ عَلَى الْعَاجِلِ. He says, these are short-sighted people. That's what he's saying. Short-sighted. We were looking at now. Why do we commit sins? Okay? Because we're not looking at long-term. We're just looking at now. وَلَمْ يُحَاضِرْ الْأَوَاقِبِ. We're not looking at the consequences, and we're not aware and understanding, and we haven't perceived the outcome. وَخَاصَّةُ الْأَقْلِ. He says, again bringing it back, the whole idea of the mind is it helps you to look ahead, to look at the bigger picture, not just at the moment. فَأَعْقَلُ النَّاسِ. He says, in this world, without a doubt, the most intelligent person is the one who is able to give preference over the temporary and the short-lived pleasure and works towards the long-term gains and goals. So this is what Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi is mentioning here. Then he says, قَالَ بَعْضُ الْعُلَمَاءِ. Some of the scholars have said, فَكَّرْتُ فِي مَا يَسْعَى فِيهِ الْعُقَلَاءِ فَرَأَيْتُ سَعْيُهُمْ كُلُّهُ فِي مَطْلُوبٍ وَاحِدٍ. He says, some ulama said that I've thought about what the intelligent people in this world strive after. People are striving. Every single person is striving for something. So you've got to start looking, what is everyone striving for? What's everyone striving for? فَرَأَيْتُ سَعْيُهُمْ كُلُّ فِي مَطْلُوبٍ وَاحِدٍ. I noticed that every single person is striving for the same thing. Eventually it leads to the same thing, despite their ways being different. Okay, everyone's doing it in a different way, but what they want to achieve at the end of the day is the same. رَأَيْتُهُمْ جَمِيعُهُمْ إِنَّمَا يَسْعَوْنَ فِي دَفْعِ الْهَمِّ وَالْغَمْ عَنْ نُفُوسِهِمْ. Because there's one thing people are trying to get. They're trying to push away sorrow and worry in this world. That's what everyone's trying to do. Every single person who's doing something in this world, working, what they're trying to do is push away sorrow and worry. But everyone's doing it differently. He says, فَهَذَا بِالْأَقْلِ. Not you, listen, this pointing. فَهَذَا بِالْأَقْلِ. He says, this person, he's doing it by eating. This person, he says, another person is doing it by drinking. وَهَذَا بِالتِّجَارَةِ وَالْكَسْبِ. Somebody else is through business and earning. وَهَذَا بِالنِّكَاح. This person trying to achieve the same thing by doing nikah. وَهَذَا بِسِمَاعِ الْغِنَى. Somebody is doing it through music. They listen to music to try and push away their troubles. So when you get into a patch where you're having problems and you want to get rid of sorrow and this empty, this void, he's talking about a void that comes inside you, this emptiness. Some people what they do is they start binge eating. Let's speak in our language so we understand. But this is getting a bit technical, I think. So let me bring it down to our level where when people have problems in life, it's because of a void. This is what he's trying to say. Inside you there is a void, there is an emptiness, there is a hole which is just not being filled by anything. So you want to fill that hole. So what some people do is they start binge eating. Now you can try and the problem isn't the eating. This guy doesn't have an eating disorder. You can go to the doctor and say, look, I don't know what's happened, I don't know what's wrong with me. And the doctor won't even know as well. Even the doctor won't know. Some guy's into listening to music, he just can't quit it. The problem's not the music. He doesn't even like the music. The problem isn't the music, the problem is something else. Okay, someone's into smoking, he doesn't want to smoke. Okay, someone's watching pornography, for example, he doesn't even enjoy it. That's not what he wants to do. He's doing it, this is what he said. There's another pain there, because he wants to kind of ignore that pain and to cover that up, he's doing something else, which is giving him momentary pleasure, but also bringing more pain as well. Can you see? So he's saying that some people do it through eating, some people they just overwork themselves. They just don't want to. There's something there that's missing in their life. They don't know what it is, but it's driving them crazy. So for that, some people go into eating, some people drinking, some people music, some people sins, some people go and gamble, for example, some people overwork, they go overtime. Every time they're just working. They're not workaholics, they don't enjoy being there. But they don't want to face, they don't even know what it is really. They don't want to face that. Okay, it's unexplainable, you can't really explain it. So he says, فَقُلْتُ هَذَا الْمَطْلُوبُ مَطْلُوبُ الْأُقَلَى وَلَكِنَ الطُّرُقُ كُلُّهَا غَيِّرٌ الْمُوصَلَةُ إِلَيْهِ. He says, look, everyone's trying to achieve the same thing. It's that sorrow and worry you want to push away. Everyone's different ways, right? How can it be that you're trying to achieve one thing and everyone's got different ways? But لَعَلَّ أَكْثَرُهَا إِنَّمَا يُوصِلُ إِلَى ضِدِّهِ. Because but what I've noticed, most people, instead of pushing away the sorrow, what happens? The opposite happens. The problems increase. The sorrow and the worry increases. Why? Why? They're not dealing with the problem. They're not dealing with it. First of all, they don't even know what the problem is. And number two, they're not dealing with it. They're making it worse. وَلَمْ أَرَ فِي جَمِيعِ هَذِهِ الطُّرُقْ طَرِيقًا مُوصِلَةً إِلَّا الْإِقْبَالُ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Because I have not seen any solution that works except one. And that is turning to Allah. That's it. Why? Why? Because He's going to tell us afterwards as we go along. He goes, do you know what that problem is? What that void is? What is it? What's missing? The love of Allah. Because the love of Allah, it's a void which cannot be filled by anything else. Sometimes in a marital relationship, a couple expect each other to fill that gap which is only supposed to be for Allah. And then you get breakups. People feel I'm not fulfilled, I'm not satisfied. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. If I'm expecting my wife, or a couple are expecting each other, or two friends, or whatever it is, are expecting each other to fill that void, which only Allah's love can fill, nothing can fill it. Nothing can fill it. Nothing, because the love of Allah is something else. The love of people, the love of things is superficial. But the love of Allah, the tranquility that brings, there's nothing in the world that can fill that. And you see, this is what's happening. People are going crazy trying to find that. A lot of people might know what it is, most people don't even know what it is, but it's there. Because we're human beings. Allah created us. Allah created us. We've come from Allah. And there's a spark of it there. Allah is the one who gave us this heart. So this longing and yearning is there. I know it's very weak, it's deep, it's buried below so much, piles of junk and whatever, but it's there. And it needs to be fulfilled. That's why we're here. The whole idea of being in this world is that. And until that doesn't happen, a person will just go crazy and try and find it in different places. And we won't find it. May Allah help us, may Allah guide us. فإن سألك هذه الطرق فإن سألك هذه الطريق إن فاته حظه من الدنيا فقد ظفر بالحظ العالي الذي لا فوت معه وإن حصل للعبد حصل له كل شيء وإن فاته كل شيء. He says, if you find the love of Allah, you found everything. If you don't find the love of Allah, you found nothing. And we're seeing that. People, millionaires, committing suicide. People have got everything, you name it, they've got everything, but they're not happy, they're not fulfilled. On the flip side, you've got people living simple lives, but they've got contentment, they're happy, it doesn't mean they don't have problems, they've got loads of problems, okay? They don't have loads of problems, hundreds of problems. But that void inside is not empty. They're turning to Allah, even in their problems. They've got a list of, if you look at them, you think, I don't want to be like this guy. But you'd love to be in his heart, because his problems are not drowning him and driving him crazy. Because what he's doing, al-iqbal ilallah, he's turning to Allah and understanding that, look, every situation comes from Allah. So this is what he's basically trying to tell us. This brings us to the end of yesterday's evening's lesson. So I think we've kind of covered quite a bit of time already, so we won't go into lesson 21 now, I think. But yeah, so this is basically, can you see now it's getting much more deeper. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah is opening the topic of love, probably like we've never heard it before, and is really going into explaining the detail where we kind of start to understand, and it kind of answers a lot of unanswered questions of why people, these attachments that people have, habits that people have, and why can't you quit? Why is it? Because it's not real. That isn't always the problem. Okay? A lot of people, binge eating is a really common one nowadays. People binge eat, and it's not. The problem is something else. People resorting to, just browsing endlessly for hours and hours. The problem isn't that. The problem is something else, but we don't want to deal with it. Because we don't want to deal with it, and the problem is that it's led to estrangement with Allah, and there's that gap there, and it needs to be fixed. But we want to kind of to cover that up. You quickly, before it even occurs to you, and we don't even realize, quickly, even when you're left for a moment inside, quickly pull the phone out. Try and get busy with something. So your mind doesn't even go there. Okay? Quickly do something. Even if you're not enjoying it, you'll just like flick, 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 keep. Okay, that's what Netflix is about. Just keep going from, even if you're not enjoying it. Okay? In the car, you're sat there, you put the radio on, like you never listen to the radio. There's nothing on there for you to benefit from it. Just so that you don't end up being in a moment of silence where you're alone and you kind of have to face up to the problem and you kind of realize that, hang on, the problem is nothing else and no one else. There's a problem with me and my relationship with Allah, and that's what I need. The love I need to have of Allah doesn't overpower and supersede everything else. And once I fix that, everything else will be fixed. But we tend to ignore that and go towards everything else. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq. Inshallah, after Asr we'll continue with lesson 21. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.